The screen flickered. Across 1,000 worlds and in every tongue spoken under the Empire's rule, the broadcast stabilized. Towering holograms ignited in marketplaces, warships, and refugee slums. The Empire had an announcement. Inside a cold chamber lined with black metal and emerald banners, a lone human knelt under heavy restraints. His face bloodied but proud. Marcus Kane, decorated Navy SEAL, Earthborn, war-tested. His posture defiant. Eyes fixed on the lens with a fire that made even his captors hesitate. A voice boomed through the chamber. "This is what happens to insurgents." Supreme Overlord Drexer Valuin stepped forward, his long shadow stretching across the execution floor. Beside him, a ceremonial blade gleamed. Ancient, symbolic, cruel. In a hidden stealth cruiser orbiting Cornexus, the Empire's capital planet, Commander Jake Reaver stood frozen, fists clenched at his sides. The transmission played unfiltered, piercing the silence of the observation deck. His team stood behind him, silent, powerless. They had tried everything. Too late. Kane spoke, voice cracked but steady. "Jake, finish it." Then the blade fell. Reaver didn't flinch. His face hardened, the pain beneath it folding into something colder. Kane's body slumped. Blood pooled. The transmission didn't end. Instead, Drexer stepped into frame, lifted his hand, and snarled. "Earth will learn. You are not gods. You bleed." Jake turned to his team. "Get off this channel. Now." Lieutenant Sato obeyed without a word. The deck fell into static silence. Jake walked slowly to the command console, entered a code only 2 people alive knew. HFY Omega. "Confirm?" "Yes." "Authorization, Reaver J." "Authorized." Protocol engaged. On the surface of Cornexus, hidden within statues, monoliths, transport hubs, and the gilded ceiling of the Empire's Hall of Unity, microscopic machines activated. Silent. Invisible. Reaver exhaled. The room felt like a tomb. He planted everything. That bastard actually pulled it off. Lieutenant Wren spoke behind him. "Sir, we're not cleared for solo ops." "I'm not waiting for clearance." Sato stepped forward. "You'll never get near Drexer." "I won't need to. By the time I'm done, he'll come find me." They stared. Jake had already begun stripping off his rank patches. He swapped his uniform for matte black infiltration gear and pulled a sealed case from the wall locker. Inside, a compact pulse rifle, for explosive drones, and a titanium ring with Marcus's initials etched inside. "Ghost gave them a show," Jake said, sliding the ring onto his gloved finger. "Now it's our turn." He looked each of them in the eye. "No comms. No retrieval. If I'm not back, file the log under Duskfall. The Nanites will know what to do." Sato swallowed. "Sir, what's the objective?" Jake's reply was emotionless. "Collapse." The drop pod sliced silently through Cornexus's lower orbit, cloaked and undetected. Reaver crouched inside, pulse calm, weapon charged. Every second played out in his head with the clarity of muscle memory. This wasn't revenge. It was a kill order. The pod cracked open in the underbelly of a monorail hub, exactly where Kane's beacon had left off days before his capture. Jake stepped into the neon-lit grime of the capital's industrial ring. Smog and heat wrapped around him like a second skin. Civilian patrols buzzed overhead. Imperial sentries manned checkpoints 2 streets over. None noticed the lone shadow moving through service tunnels and access grates. Jake reached his first target, a transit server hub cloaked in an art museum facade. He bypassed the retinal scanner with a microclone Kane had uploaded days ago. Inside, he opened the utility panel, revealing a cluster of dormant nanite nodes. They blinked alive at his touch. He connected a drive, uploaded new pathing. Inject psychological disruptor feeds. Loop visual logs. Trigger paranoia cues. Across the city, video boards flickered, not with Empire propaganda, but with old SEAL training footage. Blurred figures in mud, fire, and thunderstorm drills. Voices yelling. And one clear message. They never come alone. A merchant in the square dropped his glass of Korut wine. A military officer adjusted his collar, suddenly uneasy. Jake moved on. By the time the sun dipped below Cornexus's fortress spires, 3 key stations had been compromised. One in the power grid, one in the cultural database, and one in the planetary AI guidance system. Drexler still sat confident in his palace, unaware the noose was tightening. Back in the safe zone of the underbelly, Jake lit a burner comm once, just once. "Marcus," he whispered, eyes to the stars. "They filmed your death. I'll film their extinction." He tapped a final command. "Initialize Phantom Loop." 48-hour countdown. From that moment, a ticking sound echoed only in Jake's earpiece, a reminder of how long the Empire had left. Cornexus didn't sleep. Not really. Even in its shadowed hours, the capital planet buzzed with movement, skyrails whispered across megastructures, commerce pulses lit alleys in violet and amber. But beneath the city's opulent face, something unnatural stirred. Fear. Small at first. A whisper. Jake Reaver fed it. From a maintenance shaft 12 floors below the Imperial Medical Center, Jake watched a pair of alien sentries bicker in guttural clicks. They wore ceremonial red armor, useless, decorative, and carried outdated plasma rifles. Their posture betrayed a lack of tension. Perfect. Jake stepped into the corridor, silent as breath, and moved. 1 dart. 2. The first hit a neck joint. The second, an ocular socket. No noise, just collapse. He dragged the bodies into the crawlspace and pulled out Marcus Kane's memory chip. The chip was scorched but intact, tucked into a pocket sewn into Kane's inner boot. Jake had retrieved it hours earlier from the morgue freezer where they dumped. Enemy remains. He inserted it into a portable reader. Data bloomed across the small screen. Phase 1 deployment complete. Nanite payloads hidden in the Hall of Unity, Sublevel 8, and Broadcast Relay Prime. Failsafe, Voice ID Marcus Kane. Trigger via Reaver authorization. Jake smirked. Good man. He tapped a command. At the top of the Imperial Capital, inside the Great Hall of Unity where Drexler held court, tiny machines embedded in mural frames and ceiling beams pulsed for the first time in 6 days. They began mapping movement patterns, scanning DNA, identifying targets. They waited. Jake's second stop was the Cultural Core, a monolithic archive tower hosting centuries of the Empire's digital history. Most assumed it was unhackable, protected by living AI algorithms and quantum-locked entry. But Marcus had slipped through those defenses with charm, credentials, and a false diplomatic badge. Reaver didn't have time for finesse. He scaled the tower's maintenance risers, neutralized 2 surveillance crawlers with burst EMPs, and reached sublevel 9. It was dark. He moved through the archive vaults where holographic busts of former emperors loomed like watchful ghosts. He found Kane's signal, a nanite box the size of a fingernail glued beneath a plinth dedicated to species management. Jake activated it with a breath. The box pulsed, then flooded the archive's internal feed with ghost data, false edits, erasures, subtle shifts in records. Within minutes, the Empire's history started to unravel. Birth records changed. Battle dates shifted. Orders disappeared. Erase the truth, Jake muttered, and you erase your foundation. At the palace, Drexler Valuin seethed in his obsidian war chamber. 2 ministers bickered before him. My lord, the civilian feeds were hijacked again, one hissed. Someone is projecting off-world military footage across the merchant sectors. Drexler slammed his claw into the steel table, denting it. Do you mean the humans are responsible? A third officer, covered in ceremonial chains, nodded. The footage is Earth standard. Tactical camera angles. We believe it is authentic. Drexler stood. So they want to scare us. Let them try. I executed one of their finest on live broadcast. Their message is late. Another voice, older, steadier, echoed from the shadows. Or right on time, said General Threll, a war-hardened strategist who had survived the Zenthian uprising. Humans don't respond like other species. They don't just mourn. They make plans. Drexer's eye twitched. Plans don't defeat empires. Power does. Threll glanced at the feed monitors, now flickering images of Earth soldiers camouflaged in jungle wars. Then why are your ministers trembling at shadows? Jake moved fast. Always 10 steps ahead. Always calculating. At dusk, he rendezvoused with an old contact, Niel, a cybernetic smuggler who had once patched a bullet hole in Marcus during an op gone bad on Vornak Prime. Niel grunted when he saw him. Thought you'd be dead. Not today! You're insane, you know that? Jake pulled a small data cube from his pocket. I need this uploaded to Broadcast Relay Prime. Niel hesitated. That's suicide. Jake looked him dead in the eye. Do it. Kane died for this. The smuggler held the cube for a moment, then nodded. You've got 12 hours before they find the relays compromised. I'll buy you 6. Jake clasped his forearm. That's all I need. He spent the night moving between shadows and rooftops, planting repeaters, syncing the feed, and spreading silent decay. The plan wasn't to blow up the capital. Not yet. He was rewriting its heartbeat. And the galaxy would feel every skip beat. The next morning, the Empire's flagship news terminal played a message never authorized. It opened with Marcus Kane's voice, clear, unwavering, recorded before his capture. If you're seeing this, I'm dead. And if I'm dead, then Reaver's alive. I was just the spark. He's the fire. Run. Across the system, silent alarms lit up. Drexer's face drained of color. Civilian unrest spread as broadcasts looped Kane's final message. Jake watched from an old cafe rooftop, sipping nutrient paste through a rebreather straw. A small girl pointed at the screen, asking her mother who the man with the fire voice was. An Earth warrior, the mother whispered. Jake stood, pulled his hood tighter, and vanished into the crowd. Drexer Valuin's throne chamber was colder than usual. The Security Council assembled in a half-circle, 12 of the highest-ranking officials in the Empire, all speaking at once. Fear distorted their regal cadence. Accusations flew. Eyes darted across the room, searching for someone else to blame. Drexer remained silent. He watched the footage playing on the main projection, grainy, infrared, time-stamped, a human figure moving undetected through the archive complex. Then another clip, Imperial guards found unconscious, piled neatly in a service tunnel, with dog tags pinned to the wall. Kane's. He's mocking us, hissed Minister Krell, scales darkened with panic. This Reaver, he's not just striking targets. He's leaving messages. He's shaping a narrative. General Threll muttered. Every time we cover one hole, he opens another. And the people are watching. Drexer stood. The movement silenced them instantly. Then let them watch, he said. Let them see what happens to ghosts. Jake Reaver moved through the underpalace chambers like smoke. He wasn't after blood tonight. He was after information. 3 stories below Drexer's throne, buried under diplomatic suites and ceremonial chambers, lay the Nexus Control Core. It governed all automated systems, surveillance, drone response, internal broadcasts. A fortress of code and redundancy. No frontal assault would work. But Jake didn't come through the front. He entered through a crawl shaft carved behind the ancient aqueduct system, blueprints Kane had memorized from Imperial infrastructure leaks. The shaft stank of old coolant and ozone. Perfect cover. At the end of the shaft, a single access panel waited. Jake applied a dermal chip, stolen from a captured technician 2 days prior, and slid the hatch open. Inside the control center, 2 engineers sat quietly, sipping glowing liquid from tall vials. They never saw the tranquilizer needles. One thud, then the next. Jake pulled the interface glove from his pack and slipped it over his right hand. It synced with the dormant nanites Kane had spread like dust through the city. Jake began rewriting access layers, subverting the feed hierarchy. A smile cracked across his face. Your throne's made of glass, Drexer, he whispered. And I've got stones. In the palace above, Drexler gathered his most elite enforcers, the Umber Guard. Clad in matte black, armed with weapons laced in neurotoxin, they were known for one thing: ending threats quietly. "Find Reaver," Drexler commanded. "Kill him if you can. But if you catch him, broadcast it live. I want his death to sing." The captain of the Umber Guard bowed without a word. Then the room emptied, leaving Drexler alone with General Threll. "You don't approve?" Drexler said, not turning. Threll didn't deny it. "You're treating this like a hunt." "It's not." "Then what is it?" "A message," Threll said. "And we keep reading it wrong." Jake set up his next move in the ruins of an old maintenance chapel, once used by pre-Empire engineers. Now, forgotten and dust-choked. He unpacked a micro-projector and loaded a looped feed, Kane, laughing during a training drill, covered in mud, shouting, "One more run!" He projected it onto the side of an industrial silo near the main plaza. 30 meters tall. Impossible to miss. Minutes later, civilians gathered. First out of confusion, then with quiet reverence. Children watched, mesmerized. A few began clapping, unsure why. When guards arrived, the crowd shielded the projector. A riot nearly sparked when they tried to confiscate it. Jake watched from the rooftop, rifle across his lap, eyes focused on the street. He didn't need to fire. The message delivered itself. That night, Jake infiltrated the eastern node of the broadcast matrix. Inside, he uploaded a custom audio overlay, Marcus's last words spliced into an orchestral swell, mixed with real-time camera feeds of Imperial panic. Across Cornexus, those who tuned into the Empire's channel found themselves watching Drexler's ministers pacing like frightened prey, guards swarming buildings, alarms wailing. And always, Marcus's voice. "You kill one of ours. We erase 10 of yours. We don't bark. We don't threaten. We bury." Jake triggered the next wave. Not explosions. Confusion. Nanites began scrambling priority tags in the Empire's command chain. Orders were misrouted. One general received a sanitation memo. Another issued a military lockdown on the wrong sector. In 3 hours, 2 platoons opened fire on each other, each believing the other had gone rogue. Inside the throne room, Drexler stared at the carnage reports with trembling fingers. "We've lost internal cohesion," Minister Crow gasped. "The palace AI's been compromised." "Seal the throne wing," Drexler barked. "No one gets in or out without my code." Threll said nothing. He simply stared at a photo frozen on the screen. A soldier standing in shadow, dog tags hanging from a hook behind him. "Reaver," Threll whispered. "This isn't war. This is a reckoning." In the sanctuary of a rooftop greenhouse, long abandoned by its noble owner, Jake rested for the first time in 30 hours. He sat among vines and shattered glass, watching the city skyline flicker. He pulled out Marcus's voice recorder. The last file played. "If it's you listening, Jake, then you lived. And if you lived, you'll do what I couldn't. Make them bleed. Make them remember." Jake pressed a fist to his chest. "They will." And below, Cornexus trembled, not from force, but from fear. At 0400 Standard Galactic Time, the sky turned gray. Not from clouds. From smoke. Explosions hadn't caused it, at least not yet. Fires had erupted from systems overloading, power grids shorting, and control towers blinking to black. The city's neural net, the invisible force that kept elevators aligned, transit flowing, and surveillance tight, was severed from within. Jake Reaver walked through it like a ghost. No alarms followed him now. The Empire's security feeds were looping yesterday's footage. Patrols were chasing echoes. AI clusters failed to verify identities because Jake had rewritten their definitions. The city's core functions were collapsing, not in fire, but in confusion. And that was more terrifying. Inside Broadcast Relay Prime, 5 Imperial technicians screamed at consoles that no longer responded. All screens flashed the same phrase, in a language only a handful of them could read. "He was one of us. You will answer for him." Then footage began playing. Marcus Kane, alive, walking confidently into the Hall of Unity, nanite vials sewn beneath his shirt. This is Ghost, Mission Log Entry 14. Infiltration successful. Package delivery complete. If this reaches Earth, that means I didn't make it back. If it reaches the Empire, run. The footage cut to Marcus laughing, tossing a coded drive into a water pipe, then looking straight at the camera. Hey Jake, I know you're watching. Light the match. On the palace steps, thousands gathered. No guard stopped them. Most had abandoned their posts, unsure if orders were real or tampered. Fear didn't spread through violence, it spread through silence, through the absence of control. The great bronze doors to the Hall of Unity stood shut. But above them, for the first time in Imperial history, a projection shimmered to life. Not of Drexer, but of Kane. And then the walls spoke. Jake had uploaded Marcus's full mission log into the hall's acoustic relays. It echoed across the plaza, raw and unfiltered. We knew this would happen eventually. That Earth wouldn't stay quiet forever. That we'd pushed too far. And now, it's not just about us anymore. It's about showing them what happens when you treat humanity like a warning label. Mothers held their children. Traitors clutched comms that no longer worked. High above, Drexer watched from a shrouded balcony, hands trembling behind his back. He's turned our capital into a shrine, Krell muttered behind him. No, Drexer whispered. Into a battlefield. But we haven't fired a shot. Jake activated the final sequence. The nanites Marcus had left inside the hall's architecture were now awake. They weren't built for destruction, they were designed to reveal. To transmit. Every conversation held behind closed doors. Every decision that led to invasions. Every bribe, every betrayal. All of it, now public. Drexer's private executions. The genetic purges. The false flag raids. It all poured onto the plaza feed. The Empire wasn't being attacked. It was being exposed. In the chaos, Jake moved through the east spire under blackout cover. He reached the throne chamber's rear corridor, bypassed guards too distracted to check shadows, and entered the observation dome just above Drexer's war room. A single step brought him into view. Drexer turned slowly. Commander Reaver. Jake raised his weapon but didn't fire. I didn't come to kill you, he said. Not yet. Drexer's lip curled. You think this city falling means I fall with it? Jake nodded at the window. You already have. You just haven't hit the ground. The chamber's screens flickered again. This time, not Kane. Jake had gone live. Billions across the galaxy saw his face for the first time. No mask. No voice filter. Just him. I'm Commander Jake Reaver, Earthborn. Navy SEAL. The man you tried to humiliate on broadcast by executing my brother in arms. You wanted a message. Here it is. He stepped forward. Humanity isn't fragile. We're fire under pressure. You don't broadcast our pain without paying in full. And now, your empire is done. He cut the feed. Then pointed his rifle. Drexer took a step back. You wouldn't dare. If you kill me, you become what you hate. Jake lowered the weapon just slightly. I'm not here to become anything. I'm here to finish something. Then he shot the floor beneath Drexer's feet. The impact blew out the glass and sent Drexer falling 2 stories into his own war table. Alive, but broken. As guards rushed in, Jake vanished into the ventilation shaft, gone before their eyes adjusted. Outside, the people weren't cheering. They were watching still. Absorbing every second. Truth was louder than fire. That night, as Drexer was dragged from the wreckage, bleeding and muttering, the last thing he heard was a citywide echo. Earth never asked for war. But you gave it to us anyway. And then everything went dark. Drexer's breath was ragged. He lay in the center of the war table, spine fractured, ribs caved in. The once grand hall, the throne room of a trillion subjects, now echoed with sirens and footfalls. Guards scrambled around him, some too frightened to look him in the eye. Others simply watched, waiting for orders he no longer gave. No one lifted him. He was breathing. That was enough, for now. From the far end of the shattered chamber, a figure stepped through the wreckage. Jake Reaver. Burned. Bleeding from a deep cut across his shoulder. But steady. Silent. The guards raised their weapons. Jake raised one hand. Before they could fire, the floor beneath their boots lit up. Projectors built into the walls surged to life. Marcus Kane's nanites had done more than collect data. They had rigged the palace's defense system to respond to one voice. Reavers. The guards' weapons jammed mid-trigger. Their HUDs shut down. Powerless. Out, Jake ordered. They fled. Drexler coughed blood, tried to lift himself, and failed. Reaver, he wheezed. Jake stood over him. You remember what you said? That humans bleed? Drexler's lips twitched. Jake knelt beside him. We do bleed. But we don't break. He held up a device, small, cylindrical, pulsing with light. This is broadcasting right now. All of it. Your face. Your fall. And in 60 seconds your legacy. No, Drexler rasped. Jake activated the final sequence. The device synced to every Imperial node still online. Broadcast satellites, private terminals, civilian towers, all hijacked. Across the galaxy, people watched. Not through Imperial news filters. Not through fabricated scripts. But through Reaver's lens. The feed showed Drexler bleeding under his own throne. Jake's voice, calm and measured, came through. This is for every colony erased from your records. Every voice you silenced. Every name you turned to dust. You killed a seal on live broadcast to send a message. So here's mine. He turned to face the camera fully. Humanity doesn't scream. We strike. Drexler spat weakly. You'll become what I was. A tyrant. Jake shook his head. No. Because I walk away. He stood, leaving Drexler gasping on the floor. But before he reached the exit, he paused. No. Not yet. He turned, drew his sidearm, and aimed, not at Drexler, but at the gilded Imperial emblem etched above the throne. One shot. The crest shattered. It rained metal and gold fragments down across the hall, clattering like the last gasp of an empire. Minutes later, Jake stepped onto the palace balcony. Crowds had gathered in silence, bathed in the flickering light of a collapsing regime. Every screen still showed Drexler's fall, the wreckage, the truth. Jake faced them. He didn't shout. He didn't demand. He simply said, You saw it. You lived it. What happens next is yours to decide. Earth won't rule you. But we won't let monsters wear crowns again. And with that, he vanished into the smoke. The aftermath came fast. Palace guards defected. Broadcast towers shut themselves down to prevent further corruption. Too late. The Empire's outer systems declared independence within hours. Civil war sparked in 3 sectors. In one, the people simply walked away from their posts and never returned. Drexler was kept alive for trial. Not by Reaver's hand, but by his silence. That silence echoed louder than any execution. Back on Earth, a small room inside a military archive opened for the first time in a decade. A sealed file, classified Ghostfall, was marked complete. Commander Jake Reaver was officially declared dead. Kia. Unofficially, he disappeared. Some say he made it off Cornexus during the riots. Others say he was vaporized in the palace as the final broadcast ended. Only one message remained, left in a secured Earth military drive. Marcus Kane wasn't a casualty. He was the trigger. I just followed the signal. If humanity's ever tested again, remind them of Ghost Protocol. The message ended with coordinates. They led to a distant system, quiet, green, untouched. And beneath its surface, silence. Not of defeat, but of readiness.